Good morning, government students. This is Mrs. Politsky, and today we're going to be taking notes over Chapter 4, Section 2, and talking a little bit about relations among the states. And to complete these notes, you're going to need the guided reading worksheet that I think your sub has for you. So as we go along, make sure you're following along and putting information where it needs to be. All right, we're going to talk a little bit about interstate relationships. And on your handout, it should look a little something like this up at the top, minus the boxes. But we're going to talk a little bit about where this all kind of shows up here. In Article 4 of the Constitution, it states that the states are required to do the following: to give full faith and credit to the law, records, and court decisions of other states. Second, to give one another's citizens all the privileges and immunity of their own citizens. And finally, number 3, to extradite or to return to a state criminals or fugitives who happen to flee across state lines to escape justice. And as we go along here, we're going to put in some information here about full faith and credit, privileges and immunities, and extradition. So take a look under your first box here. Full faith and credit basically means that each state has to recognize the laws and legal proceedings of other states. And examples of that would be, for example, your registration on your automobile or even your driver's license. That if you are, let's say, from South Dakota and you happen to be driving in our state of Nebraska, that whatever the state of South Dakota did to prepare you and to see to it that your car was fit to be on the roads would be good enough for any other state of the union that you happen to be driving in. That would also include your birth records. You know, there's a few of you in class here who were not born in the state of Nebraska. And that means that the state of Nebraska would recognize a birth certificate from, let's say, the state of Oregon. Privileges and immunities. Okay, the Constitution provides that citizens of each state shall be entitled to privileges and immunities of citizens in several states. Okay, this clause, for the most part, means that one state may not discriminate unreasonably against other citizens. Let me move this box here. There's a lot to write. But one state may not discriminate unreasonably. An example means for this would be a citizen may pass through other states, live in other states in which you were born or not born, or make contracts, marry, sell and hold property in all states. It's possible that at some point in time you may choose to marry a spouse that was not originally from Nebraska. And let's say you get married in the state that your spouse is from. The state of Nebraska, if you would come back here to live, would probably have to recognize that marriage, as long as it is in the definition of what that state defines as marriage. When we talk about extradition, extradition is basically if you're an individual who is fleeing from the law, if you have been charged with a crime, such as treason or a felony, and you should happen to leave your home state or the state that you committed the crime in, the governor of that state would be able to go after you, and even if you're in another state, they could force that state that you are in to return you. So it is a federal crime to flee. So let's say we have an individual who commits a crime in the city of Omaha, and they get in a car and they drive across the bridge into Iowa, and they happen to be hiding out in Council Bluffs. There is an agreement that would eventually mean that that individual would be returned to the state of Nebraska to stand trial. If an individual has committed crimes in multiple states, and let's say they are capital offenses such as murder, it is possible that the state that has the severest punishment might be the state where that individual would have their sentence carried out. An example of this happened many years ago in Nebraska with a man named John Jubert, who happened to be accused of killing a couple of young boys. And he had also been accused of committing murder in the state of Maine. Maine did not have the death penalty, but Nebraska did. And so Jubert basically fulfilled his sentencing, the punishment for that crime here in the state. All right, moving on. We're going to talk a little bit about interstate compacts and interstate lawsuits. And we're going to talk a little bit about what each of these means, and then eventually how these things would be handled. So first thing, reason for having an interstate compact. Just so you know, an interstate compact is an agreement between states that requires them to settle their differences with each other without any kind of force. And some reasons for having a compact would be to control things like air quality, such as air pollution, maybe even water pollution, managing a toll bridge, or transportation that might, cross into another state, conserving wildlife, fish, water, coal, oil, or handling of the disposal of hazardous materials. Okay, when we look at interstate lawsuits, this would occur when a state or states are unable to resolve their disputes by other methods, and thus we have to take it to the courts. Sounds like Judge Judy. So if we can't handle those differences, we will have a lawsuit. Just so you understand, many times when a state sues another state, uh, original jurisdiction usually takes place within the Supreme Court. So how could these be handled? Um, Interstate compact, the compact is signed by parties to the agreement. So that could be two or more states, or it could be a state and the national government. For example, in Nebraska, we have several rivers that go through our state, particularly the Platte and the Republican River and the Missouri River, which we share with other states. And we have water usage agreements. A few years ago, there was a lawsuit between the state of Kansas and the state of Nebraska over irrigation rights off the Republican River. And we had signed a compact, but the state of Kansas basically said that the state of Nebraska was using too much of the water. And eventually there would be a lawsuit as a result of the violation of the compact. So interstate lawsuits are always heard by the U.S. Supreme Court. It is the only court in which one state may sue another. This is when the Supreme Court has what we call original jurisdiction. All right, thank you for following along.